So yeah, before we start the video, everyone including myself were surprised with the new Clementine comic reveal made on Twitter recently. I'll make a future video talking about what are my hopes for it, so be sure to subscribe to the channel to be sure you'll watch that whenever it's ready. Thank you for your attention, and to the video. Hello everyone, Mario B here with another video. And today we're here for the fourth and final part of my New Frontier rewrite series, where I try to improve the story solely from analyzing plot, characters, cut content, and little evidences that are left in the game, but are never explored in a really fulfilling way. Remember, this is the fourth part, so there are other three to check out in case you haven't watched them. Links will be in the description. To recapitulate things that happened so far, 1. Last time, Javier and Clem would meet themselves in the slaughterhouse and escape from there, meeting the Prescott community. When trying to get to her family, the player would determine Marianne and Gabe's fate when choosing to go with Eleanor or trip to the junkyard. On episode 2, Francine, who'd be the leader in Prescott, would betray us and sell the community to the New Frontier. We joined the fight against them, and then we'd head to Richmond, still having the Conrad moment and David's reveal at the gates. On episode 3, I'd say David was the character that got most changes out of all. He'd be a member of the New Frontier who was aware of the group's authoritarianism all along, but would start to feel regretful after he knew his son/daughter's death was basically his fault. From there on out, he'd be really willing to atone the wrongs he did. Also, Lindgard and Joan would have switched roles, and Eleanor would be Joan's daughter. For Clementine, nonetheless, she'd have way more flashback variations depending on the player's choices back from Season 2 and on the flashbacks themselves. We could join the New Frontier in many different ways and be accompanied by many people in the process, only then to discover that they were brutal on their way of life, and they would suffer the consequences, with David pulling the trigger on determinately Randy, the father from the family in the Jane ending, Mike, and yes, even Kenny. There would be a trial on the Prescott survivors. On Javi's turn, we determine our own sentence depending on how we plead on the accusations, and on Clem's turn to be judge, there would be the big revelation that AJ was killed by David, retconning the entire final season and just kidding. It would be a lie, of course, but anyways, this is the last video, and if you're already a subscriber, I ask that you leave a like right now. And if you're not, you can wait until the end of the video to judge if I deserve it or not. Just to clear out, I'll cover episodes 4 and 5 in this unique video, and the format will be a bit different than the previous videos, where I'll try to be more resumed of things instead of going scene by scene with the episodes, especially since I'll use little scenes and concepts for what the episodes already have. Without any further ado, let's get into it, guys. So, I have a few complaints about this episode. I mean, actually quite a lot. I personally wouldn't know if I consider episode 4 or 3 to be the worst one in the season, which ultimately makes this here one of the worst ones ever in the series. But yeah, it's got awful close. This is ultimately sad because these two are the only episodes in the season that have a decent length of playtime of like an hour and a half each one of them. The story on itself, well, first of all, the flashback on the batting cages, it's not the worst one. I still find the episode 2 worse than this.
Wanna take me with you?
But this here is really useless to the story in my opinion. We know David has a lot of problems with Kate and Javi, and we already have the option to tell David on episode 1 if we were gonna keep contact and take care of our family or not. So why put all of these things back here one more time? Were they pushing even more the love triangle stuff with Kate? Or perhaps they just ran out of ideas to fit the flashback per episode formula and stuff? Well, this flashback solely ties to a few dialogue lines in the start of the episode, and yeah, overall this here just feels really bland for me. Clem has her determinant flashbacks about Kenny and Jane. Those are pretty nice, as I said in my first video, but really bringing them this far in the season is just a way to elude players, to let them think their choices in season 2 actually mattered. I also absolutely hate how they handle Clem and her struggles with AJ, both wanting to kill Lindgard in the clinic scene for information, and her stupid flashback with Ava. Like, really, her relationship to the New Frontier is really inconsistent. Lindgard and David were jerks, yeah, but I don't think Clem's fear for them on episode 2 is justified by what happened on the episode 3 flashback. And this scene here just comes to complement this contradiction. Ava is being really nice, giving her supplies and making sure that Clem's okay. So why the hell would she be this triggered whenever the New Frontier was brought up in episode 2? All of this hate she has for the New Frontier, and David especially, just annoys me as hell. And this teenage bratty self of hers just goes against everything the character went through in the previous games. Gabe also has both of his most stupid moments ever in here, barging on that technician guy which causes our wound, and determinedly telling off about us killing Conrad in front of Tripp and Eleanor in the most stupid way possible. Here we have Kate at last opening her feelings to Javi. I guess her being sad and confused is actually plausible if you kissed her in the junkyard or teased her in many other occasions and still denied her. But even if you don't do shit and deny her regardless, she'll still be bitchy about it. Really, Javi does not deserve these stupid relatives of his. The enforcers, Lonnie and Max, if you spare the last one, just both disappear completely for no reason. They put Rufus back but didn't even bother to put them at least in the background? Just why? Conrad also do not have that much presence if compared to episode 3, and the scenes he's in are pretty artificial in my opinion. Not even to mention the climax of the episode where Eleanor goes crazy and we just have Clint, one of the most useless characters ever, and also, oh god, Joan. Definitely the worst villain in the series, and it's really disappointing that she's the main villain of this whole season. Really, I just like to take some time to compare her to our main baddies throughout the series. The St. John's, creepy cannibal family that tries to make us eat our own friends' legs. Terrifying and shocking. The Stranger, creepy, calm, and has the role to point out all the bad Lee has done throughout the game and tell to the player's face that we are not fit to raise Clem, the main theme of the game, deep and thoughtful. Carver, unpredictably aggressive, smart, has an omnipresent survival of the fittest philosophy that interlinks with all of the characters and events in Season 2. The final season is not that good in the villain material, but I still find that each one of them have at least 2 or 3 moments that are just a joy to watch, with Marlon and Minerva being the best ones in my opinion. But hell, even Abel is a cool secondary villain, and despite me not enjoying Lily that much, she's there to affect the plot in a significant way. Hell man, it's really depressing that even The Walking Dead Michonne managed to have better villains than ANF. All the while, we're stuck with
I can do anything I want!
Anyway, I'm done ranting. To the rewrite already. I personally think that a few concepts of thicker than water can still be used, with our group still trying to insert some sort of revolution from within the community walls, as it is depicted both on the banners for this episode, where Clem's holding a pistol in front of a few allies, and in episode 5 where Javi is rising from the people, claiming himself as the leader apparently. So these rough ideas are used still in both episodes, but I really think they're underdeveloped in my opinion. So there would be 2 ways to start off this episode, both exiled or on a slave work. Both outcomes would become a single thing further on the episode, but these scenes would be distinct. So starting exiled, we'd basically have the thing from episode 3, but we'd be by ourselves, with David showing us a place on the map so we can meet him there. Without any choice, we scoop around some walkers from the incoming herd and make it to his safe house. There, we choose our approach on David, if we're gonna be patient with him or rant and fight with him. Both approaches would make David reveal to the player at last that he did not kill AJ, because he couldn't do it. Thus, he and Joan found a way to send the kid away in secret to another community, lying to Lindgard about having killed him. Not only that, but here we'd convince David to go back to Richmond and make justice for all the wrongs the community has done. If we went to slave work, we'd have a few scenes working alongside Clementine, Tripp, Jesus, and determinedly Conrad. So Remember in my first video I said the slaughterhouse held a few people from Richmond as prisoners and they went back after we got out? Yeah, those people would be here with us, and they also would be the same people that Jesus was looking for all along.
Just like you, I lost touch with some good people there when the New Frontier took over.
David would come to us in a certain moment where we'd be alone in the working area. Here we'd basically have the same approach opportunities to David as we had in the exiled scene, having him revealing about AJ and also convincing him to join us on a revolution. Now with both determinant scenes playing out, Javi would sneak in the community with David's help, reuniting with our group, Jesus' friend, and other prisoners in the expansion, planning a riot. Here we could talk to Clem about AJ being alive, and she'd be skeptical at first, thinking that David might be lying to us. With this, David would help Javi and Clem sneak in the city, making us meet back Kate and Gabe/Mari, telling them about the revelations and their plan to take down Lindgard and change things in Richmond once and for all. While all of this, we'd also have the opportunity to subtly see the people's opinion about the tribe from the previous episode, and they'd be really divided, making a revolution to be a really viable option. Then we'd make it to meet Eleanor and Joan, so David could make Joan tell Clem that he was not lying about AJ's well-being. Joan here would confirm that AJ was okay and that she got him to the Macara Ranch, but that place wouldn't be just a few miles from Richmond like Lindgard says in the original episode. The place would be really far from Richmond. David would try and enlisting Joan on the plan. Joan would be a bit thoughtful about it, stating that if we convinced Clint to join us, she was all in the plan. Here also would still have the opportunity to have an alone time with Eleanor, tied to their romance thing that was teased in the earlier episodes. With all of this done, we'd go back to the feud so we wouldn't be far for too long. We'd talk more to the group about the plan and sleeping. If we were exiled, we'd stay hidden on David's house with Ava, just pointing something out. The Enforcer trio, Max, Lonnie, and Badger, would be guarding us if we were in the fields. And here we could have an opportunity to make our hatred for Badger and the others even stronger. On the next day, we'd join with David and Ava to try and enlist Clint himself to our cause, and it would be the player's competence to convince him or not. With him joining us, Joan would come in a domino effect. Just explaining things up, Clint would act in our favor despite of what we tell him, but in only one of the approaches he'd be telling the truth. If we were rude to him or not that believable in his eyes, he'd be pretending to be on our side only to betray us later on. With the information that Clint was backing us up, despite him lying or being honest, Joan would join our cause, but both of the members wouldn't want to put their hands on the fire just yet. They would want us to light the fire of revolution, and from there, they would join us. So our hero's plan would basically be this: creating a revolution and dominating the expansion part and its borders to the main town in the first day. After that, Joan and Clint would join us in the second day, trying then to bring the fight to Lindgard. David would give the prisoners a bunch of weapons and the revolution would start, being really action-packed. We, alongside Clem, Trip, Jesus and Conrad, would dominate the designated area, also defeating Max, Lonnie and Badger in the process. With Badger, we'd kill him, but it would be up to us to give him a mercy killing or go full berserk on him, kinda like it already happens on episode 3. And Max and Lonnie would depend on us to keep them alive or not. Also here, I'd put a determinant death to Conrad, just to fit with the fact that this character has many determinant deaths in the original game. Eleanor, David, Ava, Kate, and Gabe/Murray would join us there to rest and fight on the following day. If you shot Conrad, in this moment Gabe/Murray accidentally would mention Conrad's death, and Trip and Eleanor would flip with Javi, having a potential fight between us and Trip, making things way more tense. This may not seem important now, but it will be for episode 5. Trip and Javi would back off so they would not jeopardize the whole revolution. In the other day, the plan would be to take the council's headquarters. Therefore, 2 squads would be formed, one with Javier, David, and the other with Eleanor, Trip, Conrad, Jesus, Kate, Gabe/Mari, and Ava, and also Clem could be determined on both squads. While one squad would be planning the troops to advance in the town in case things got sideways, Javi and David would go alone and literally, I know this is gonna sound dumb, protest in front of the council building. Clint and Joan would have already planned a town meeting so our plan could work, and we tried making things peacefully and tried bringing the people of Richmond to our side. Here, however, is where Lindgard would have a hidden card with either Clint or Joan betraying us and revealing the location of Squad 2 to Lindgard, and therefore all of them, Kate, Gabe/Amari, Trip, Jesus, Ava, and determinedly Conrad and Clem would appear to be hanged in front of everyone. Kinda like it already happens to David in the original episode. If Joan was the one to betray us, she'd get Eleanor out of the sentence. Despite betraying us or not, both Clint and Joan would find Lindgard's proposal to be cruel, and they would all protest about it. Kinda like Clint does to Joan in the original episode. Anyway, Lindgard would give the order to hang all of them at the same time, and Clint and Joan would both mobilize troops to take them down. So here there would be two teams fighting, Joan and Clint versus Lindgard, while David and Javi and determinedly Clem would mobilize to help our friends before they all suffocate in the gallows. In a certain moment, David and Clem would be in a really tight spot and would be solely up to the player to save them. If the player wasn't fast enough, people would determinedly die, especially if Clem, Conrad, and Eleanor were also in the gallows. The time would be way smaller to try and save everyone. After we saved who we could, the war between the two factions would escalate until a point where the wall was destroyed, allowing the herd of walkers to break in, and that's how the episode would end. Basically like how it does, but the stakes would be way higher, with many characters being determined at that point, with the obvious exception of Clem, who would have to be obligatory to be alive for, well, obvious reasons, and that's how episode 4 would end. So yeah, episode 5. I also have a few things to say about this one. The episode is bad, don't get me wrong, but it's not the worst thing ever. It's obvious that most people absolutely hate this episode and take it as the worst one. I can completely understand them because I used to be one of those people. I mean, I, as many other people, was patiently playing the episode as they were being released and waiting for the rest of the season to be somewhat good and at least reach the same level of hype that episode 2 built. And we got this. I used to be way more harsh with this episode back in the day. I was just really angry with the love triangle stuff in the middle of the climax, all the Cole character interactions that were cut from the epilogue of the episode, the bullcrap determinant deaths with Ava and Trip, you know, so many bad things that when I finished it, I was just glad that it was over and that Clem was going to be playable once more in the final season. But actually, looking back in the middle of so many mistakes this season already has made, I could find some good moments and aspects about this entry here, not gonna lie. The flashback in this episode is pretty good, although a bit misplaced in my opinion. That's why I choose to place it on episode 3 instead. We have Gabe stepping up and growing a bit more mature. We have the nice conversation with David on the rooftop, a hard final choice that can lead to many outcomes with your relative, with the extra of Clem joining you to save Richmond or not, depending on your choices. Many characters get to live and die, and it is thoughtful of the developers to try making something a bit memorable out of it. Despite all of that, the episode is still bad. It has a major left out potential. Anyway, episode 5 would start with the scene in the gallows, with who was saved and who died, all the while Lindgard's and Jones/Clint's troops would fight each other in the middle of the incoming herd. The chaos would be everywhere, and Javi, David, Clem, and our companions who lived would try to get out of there alive. We and many other characters, including Clint, Joan, Max, Lonnie, and many survivors from the Richmond population would meet inside the council room to get away from the walkers. And then in this scene here, we'd see Lindgard and a few of the men running away from the chaos. There, a wild argument would break in, blaming each other for what has happened. Here, it would be clear how it was determinedly that Joan or Clint betrayed us, and how we would approach them, being aggressive or cooperative to make the best of a bad situation. In a point in our argument, we'd try to find a way to save Richmond, and we'd come up with a plan to use the vehicles from the expansion to try luring the walkers out of the city's perimeter. Things would be settled, and we'd have to recruit allies to do it. And here, every single one of our secondary characters would be determined to join our troop. This recruitment structure is something that it is used in many Telltale games, and it is worthwhile to make the player's choices matter somehow. Season 1 uses it when deciding who will go rescue Clementine alongside Lee. The Wolf Among Us uses on the Crooked Man's trial, and Tale from the Borderlands also uses to the final battle against the Vault of the Traveler. Though to be fair, the game does use this choice system already with Clem, and this thing in particular will determine the character's fate, but it's just Clem. Here we could have a lot of people joining us against the fight of walkers, including people who we consider to be our enemies. So, which characters would be in play and how would it work? The only characters that go with you no matter what would be David and Clementine, and solely by leaving them alive, Gabe/Mari, Kate, and Ava would also join you. If Conrad was alive after his determinant deaths, he would join you no matter what, and Tripp would go too in a domino effect. Tripp himself would not go with you only if you killed Conrad in episode 2, and also Jesus wouldn't go with you if you shot him. Max and Lonnie would join you in case you gave Badger a mercy killing on episode 4. This would also apply to Jesus, since it seemed in episode 3 that we killing Badger in cold blood meant a lot to him. In Joan and Clint's case, the one that didn't betray you would join us no matter what, and the other who did betray you would join you only if you forgave them after the betrayal. Here, Eleanor would have 3 determinant factors to recruit her: Conrad, Joan, and the relationship you had with her, and these factors would combine each other. So if you killed Conrad, her first intention would be not to go with you. But if Joan joined us, she could convince Eleanor to come along. If Joan betrayed you and you did not forgive her, Eleanor would join you only if you had a love relationship with her. And if you had a love relationship with her, but then she finds out you killed Conrad, she'd feel deeply betrayed and wouldn't join you, despite Joan trying to convince her or not. With our team ready, we'd head out to find the trucks and vehicles in the expansion part of Richmond, also climbing that bridge and making it to the helicopter cliff. But here, characters wouldn't determinately die in a stupid way. Here we'd meet Lindgard and a few of his men also trying to make it to the vehicles. Maybe here we could interact with Lindgard, and he would say that he would kill us, take the vehicles, and save Richmond, claiming himself once again as their rightful leader, also provoking us about the mistakes we made, stating that neither David, Joan, Clint, or even Javi were prepared to lead Richmond against the bad waves of hardships that were about to hit the community. We'd fight him and his men, and we could choose to spare him or not, and even convince his men to join us on saving Richmond. They wouldn't join us into the vehicle heist, but they would go back to try rescuing more civilians. We then finally make it to the vehicles, taking the tractor, the crane, also maybe a big truck and a lot of weapons, maybe bombs as well, so we could bring the fight against the walkers on Richmond. There would be a few things to do during this battle before we could just start killing the walkers, like opening the front gates for the vehicles to come inside, and also fixing the hole that their fight on episode 4 caused, like it already happens in the game. The action scene could go in many different ways to build tension. For instance, one of our vehicles could simply break or be swarmed with walkers, and we'd have to rescue the survivors we could. I mean, it's a really productive thing to put all of these factors in the end game of the series, because really, let's be honest, the fight for Richmond in the episode is so freaking fast, and it almost felt like it was just too easy to do all of that, you know? Anyway, in here, a few people could die, including either Kate or Gabe/Mari, but it would be up to the player's choices. After the big battle, everything would end up with David somehow sacrificing himself to save Richmond, kinda like Kate already does in the final episode if you choose to go after Gabe. We'd clear out Richmond, and all of the remaining characters would bury David and many other in a sad multiple funeral, and put the photo on the memorial wall like we already do in the epilogue. After that, we'd have a quiet and peaceful time with a few characters, kinda like we already do in the episode, but with the presence of everyone who survived. We could either have a nice time with the remaining people, joyful or a sad and reconciliation one with our colleagues, depending on each choice you made. Trip and Conrad, Jesus and Eleanor would both have their determinate dialogues with us, proposing to stay with us or choose their own lives outside the city. So after the many occasions and events of the story we were present in, like the trial from episode 3 and the revolution on both episodes 4 and 5, people would genuinely start looking at us to fill in the role of leader in Richmond. This is an original theme of the episode already, but I feel that with what I proposed in these videos, it's a way more natural progression to put Javi in charge instead of how it was handled in the game. But anyway, I'll let you, the viewer, be the judge of that. With this, we'd be in the council room for an ultimatum. What would we do to Lindgard, and what would we do to the traitor Clint/Joan? For Lindgard, it would be up to us to arrest him or make him pay with his life, and for the traitor, it would be up to us to finally forgive him completely and let him be a part of the council, or arrest him and punish the traitor accordingly. There could be a moment with the surviving members of our family, Clem and Ava determinedly, and here I think it would be nice for them to talk about David, exposing the experiences they had with him, both good or bad. And last but not least, Clementine asks Javi to cut her hair. This scene is already in the game, I know, but it's just because I find it actually a good scene, especially to end things up, a callback to season 1, while she and Javi are having this really sensitive interaction that really feels earned after the whole adventure they had in the season. Promises to the future, things are looking up. I really enjoy this and I would reuse it in here, but there's only one problem with it really. Holy hell, the haircut is hideous. Thank God they changed their minds in TFS. Anyways, after this, Clem would say her goodbyes to Javi and whoever was left alive, and would leave Richmond to go to the Macaro Ranch and get AJ there with the epic final scene of her growing back. In the end, The Walking Dead: A New Frontier is a really disappointing game, even a bad one so to say, and I still think that it is the worst season in the main series. But after I finish this rewrite, I genuinely feel that they could have made something emotionally touching, meaningful, and, well, if not epic even. But instead, we've been given a really half-baked intro to the series that actually has no legacy to leave behind. And that's kinda ironic, because legacy is the main theme of the conversation Javi has with his father in the episode 5 flashback.
Legacy, Javier.
Try imagining things with me for a second. What is Season 1's legacy to the series? Aside of, well, many characters and critical acclaim, the most concrete legacy it has is Clementine herself, who lived through the events of Season 1 and became an integral part of the franchise. The same thing can be said about Season 2's main legacy to the series, which is Alvin Jr. Really, try thinking Seasons 3 and 4 without AJ. There would be such a blank space left out. But then when you stop to think about which one is Season 3's legacy, nothing comes to mind. A few scars, a missing finger, that's it? Listen, I'm not saying that necessarily a character from A&F, like, I don't know, Gabe or even Javier himself should join Clem's pack. But, you know, there should be something, anything in here that became a substantial part of the franchise. But sadly, there aren't that many good things in this game worthy to be maintained at all. Overall, in this rewrite, I mainly tried giving more meaning to our choices from Season 2, with more flashbacks controlling Clementine, tried developing more the Richmond community, and the choice system attached to the game themes of family and survivorship, making many characters to be determinants by the end of the season. And probably one of the most important things in my opinion, I tried making David Garcia somewhat of a better character that seeks redemption and protection to his family after doing so much wrongs in behalf of the community he led, creating a strong connection to our protagonist. So yeah guys, that was it. A big video worthy of the finale of my rewrite series. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'm glad if you made it this far. As always, don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. This Season 3 rewrite series was definitely the hardest thing I did in this channel, and I'd really be glad if you give this video the support you think it deserves. Do you agree with everything that I proposed? Do you disagree? Do you have an extra point on something I forgot mentioning? Leave it down in the comments. For future plans for the channel, I won't make a final season rewrite series, or even a season 1 for that matter. Not only because I don't think those two need to be that badly rewritten like season 3 or even season 2, but because I want to make different types of videos in the meantime. As I said in the beginning of the video, I'll make a video about the new Clementine comic that was revealed recently, but I also have plans to make a character analysis video. No big spoilers, but it's gonna be a season 2 character.
Look at this photograph!
So stay tuned for those and more. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Once again, thank you a lot. Peace, and see you when I see you.